Welcome to The Pickup. I'm your host, Will Lewis, and today we have the venerable Mike Vendetti of Audiobooks with Mike Vendetti as our guest. Welcome, Mike.
Well, it's really great to be here, Will.
Fantastic. How are you today?
I am just better than I should be out here in beautiful downtown Florence, Colorado.
Oh, really? How's the weather out there?
Well, 5 minutes ago it was fine, but it can change that quickly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, so you could be in the middle of a blizzard by the time we finish this interview, huh?
That has happened.
Oh, okay. Well, strap on your snowshoes, Mike. Here we go.
All right, I'm ready.
So, Mike, you've narrated over 300 audiobooks and won numerous awards for your narration. How'd you get started in voice acting?
The way I got started in voice acting was I was an auctioneer for 20 years. After I'd worked about 20 years as a sales engineer in the Silicon Valley. And working as an auctioneer, I never met a microphone that I didn't love. And, so when I retired as an auctioneer, I was looking for something along the same line. And when you move from an area as an auctioneer, it's very difficult to get started again unless you are a contract auctioneer doing automobile auctions or something like that, flying across the country, and didn't want to do that. So I started looking for things that I could do as I had my microphones, and I started looking for things that I could do as a narrator or a microphone person. And at the time that I got into doing audiobooks, I went to the paper for your audition thing, and I got a couple of really, really good jobs that way. They were more or less long-term jobs. Matter of fact, I still have one of them, but it gradually petered out, and audiobooks were available. So I started recording on LibriVox and kind of learned how to do it. And one day I was doing Think and Grow Rich, and I got myself motivated. And I called audible.com, and they got back to me. And there was a very, very small window where you could get a contract with audible.com. That was kind of between when they were just getting started and when they came with ACX. And when they came up with ACX, they pretty much quit giving out contracts like that. But I have a contract with audible.com, and yes, I have done about 300 audiobooks, but a lot of them are short stories, so it's not like I'm doing a long-term narration. It's so that's pretty. And when I first got my contract, there were lots of jobs apparently in radio and voiceover work and so forth, and audiobooks were kind of the bottom of the pile, and your voices didn't really want to get into doing that type of thing. But as audiobooks became more and more popular, more and more big names started doing audiobooks. So here I am.
Well, I can tell you right now that, Mike, you have the voice of a movie trailer announcer. You just have that resonance, that very low, bassy, warmy, hot chocolate drinking type voice.
Well, thank you very much. In a world.
Yeah. Give us a line there. Give us your best movie trailer in a world for our listeners real quick.
In a world where a primitive band of humans, the survivors of 40 generations of a crashed liner, struggle to survive on a planet where giant insects rule. Don't miss.
I want to go see that movie.
You want to go see that movie, yeah?
And not the matinee. I'm talking about the full-blown evening price. That's what I want.
Well, what's funny? I just had that in front of me because it's, with my audiobook publishing, it's that is actually from The Forgotten Planet by Murray Leisner. And that is the book description, going into it. So I had a line. I'm kind of like the Ted on the Mary Tyler Williams show. Remember him? The guy that couldn't think, but he could talk.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's me.
So you used to be an auctioneer. I mean, is that a high stress job? I mean, because you can't. I imagine that you have to be able to think on your feet, and you can't stumble over your words, and you've got a whole audience hanging on everything you say. I mean, am I describing this accurately, or was it a little different?
Well, actually, an auctioneer, it's changing. You can watch somebody doing something, and you say, I could do that. I could do that. And so I went to auctioneer school, and I got a third grade education, which is about as high as you can get in a school, and then it's learning how to do it. And the only way you learn how to do it is to do it. And nobody's going to let you do it because you don't know what you're doing. And
the old catch-22.
Yeah, it really is. It's like voiceover. Voiceover is people will tell you, say, well, you've got a great voice. You like what you just told me. Well, that doesn't really get it handled. You've got to be pretty much an actor and so forth. And same thing with auctioneering. And auctioneering is, what you hear when you hear the auctioneer. It's a number and a filler word followed by a number. It's what I have, what I want. I'm at 75 right. Now. Would he give me 80? Would he give me $80 bid? Now would he give me $85 bid? Now would he give me 90? I'm 90 here now, 95.
So the idea is just to fill in space between the numbers.
Yeah, it's between the numbers. You're just talking numbers. But the difficult, I had a revelation one day when I was doing a car auction that somebody could interrupt me and I could come back to where I was, because it's like a song. Like when I was talking to you, I was at 80, asking for 85. And it's just something that after it's like a tune that runs through your head over and over again. And you have different number increments, but they're typically based on 5. 5, you go by 10s, 25s, whatever. And it's counting by the numbers, and it's what I have, what I want. Very simple thing. And it's the rhythm, and it's like singing. I could do auctions all day long. And I never got particularly stressed out doing auctions. I'm kind of like something I saw at the restroom at Fort Ord about the light infantry division. It's too light to fight and too dumb to run. Well, I just was too dumb to run. I went out there and went with it.
Now, very quickly, off the top of your head, the funniest thing that ever happened to you during an auction?
Well, one of the funniest things, my ex-wife used to help me with the auction. And, when you get into auction, you're pretty much in the zone, and you're doing your thing. And this wasn't really, well, it's funny later, but I mouthed off about something, and she was clerking, and she quit right there.
In the middle of the auction?
In the middle of the auction. Say, goodbye. Hey, where are you going? Where are you going? Come back here.
25, you come back for 20, 25, 30, come back to me right now. I'll give you that. Was it something like that?
And say, hey, don't leave me now. Don't leave me now.
Okay, yeah, that's the test of a true professional, right? The unexpected, the impromptu.
Well, yeah, and you get the impromptu. It's like losing your PA or whatever. It just, I was just, very, very fortunate. It was like everything else. It's like with the voiceover and so forth. You eventually find a niche that you belong in. And I sold junk. I did household goods, personal property, stuff like that. And eventually I got this deal selling impounded vehicles for the city of San Jose. And San Jose back then would impound about 500 vehicles a week. And that's where I really, really just love doing it. And the thing is with auctions, it's there's an auctioneer named Leroy Van Dyke. If you're old enough, you'll remember a song he did called The Auctioneer. And Leroy said, do something you love to do so much you do it for free, but do it so well you get paid to do it. And that's the way I felt about auctions. I just, well, I can remember as a little kid there was a guy named Speed Riggs, and he did a tobacco auction. And I never could do a tobacco auction, and they don't do tobacco auctions any longer. But they had this show brought to you by Lucky Strike Cigarettes, and they'd do the auction chant every time you went into that, and it was just every kid in town was trying to do it. What he would do, he'd set in the tobacco auctions. It was like sell for $35 a bale, and pretty much they know what the price are, and he'd set it at 35. 35, there's old American, and it just, you can't understand where he is. I think he sold it at $36 or something like that, but just selling to American Tobacco Company. But it's a rhythm of it. It just love it.
Right. Now, Mike, you did a tour in Vietnam. One tour, two tours?
I did 20 days in Vietnam.
20 days.
20 days. I was, it's like my military career. I can give you a brief history of that. I was, I grew up during the era of the draft. I graduated from high school in 1959. Was flunking out of the University of Minnesota, and a friend I knew got drafted, and I figured, oh, man. So I was going to go down and join the Air Force, but the Air Force guy was at lunch. So I talked to the Army guy, and
Their loss.
yeah, well, no, not. It was actually I talked to the Army guy, and he said, "Here, sit down and take this test. No pressure on anything." Well, next thing I knew, it was at Fort Carson, Colorado, and
That
marched.
must have been the ASVAB, I guess.
Yeah, whatever. I did a tour actually in Bangkok, Thailand, which was really, really great. It was before Vietnam started. It was kind of cooking then.
Mm-hmm.
And only problem with being at that particular place, which was called Just Mag, they weren't authorized any PFCs, and I was a PFC, and I couldn't get promoted, and that really bothered me. So I applied for OCS and went to OCS, and that was really a growth experience for me.
And what's OCS?
Officer Candidate School.
Okay.
And I remember Barry Goldwater was running against LBJ at the time, and LBJ said, "There isn't going to be any of our boys set foot on foreign soil if I have anything to do with it." Well, half of my class went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and the other half went to, not Fort Benning, went to Fort Riley, Kansas. And a large part of them went to the 25th Infantry Division. And those were the two divisions that were being built up to go to Vietnam. And I went there as a unit. Our battalion, or our brigade, went over there. It's actually on a boat. And getting off the boat, you remember Private Ryan?
I do, yes.
Well, you see, I'd seen the World War II movies, and they brought us ashore on a landing craft. And the really smart thing they did was take our ammunition away from us. And I could just picture the front part of that landing craft going down, just like Private Ryan, going through the water and the rounds going over your head. Mm-hmm. Well, here was the 1st Infantry Division band. Dun, 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 dun. It was, but, just, you do really dumb things when you're a new guy, and we were a whole division of new guys. And I don't know, it lasted 20 days. They were chasing a sniper, and it was interesting. I felt the mine go off. It was fortunately not it was just an anti-personnel device. And if I would have been over 2 feet to the right, it would have gone off right under me. And that was lucky, and I was out of Vietnam for good, of course. And that happened in October, and in February, my replacement, I went to OCS with him, was killed along with a good part of my platoon. So it was just, it's kind of like little things you look at, the Air Force recruiter being gone and for lunch, and I ended up in Vietnam, but it was not a bad thing. For me, it's was a real growth experience, I guess you could say. But
So let me recap this, and please correct me where I'm wrong. You signed up for the Army.
Mm-hmm.
You did your tour in Thailand, Bangkok,
Mm-hmm.
Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
and you ended up shortly after going to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
You were with your company, and you guys were, I guess you were on the ground, crawling on the ground.
Well, we were actually on the ground. It was like there were 3 VC across a rice paddy from us.
Okay.
And the school solution then, we didn't know any better, was to put the platoon online and give them all the firepower you had and go after them. And that's what we did. And it was just a obvious ambush. They figured out how they were going to deal with us, which they did. And I think I was the only one that ended up going home out of the group that got injured. But they sure outsmarted us.
So you were advancing on these 3 VCs across a rice paddy, and an anti-personnel device very close to you went off.
Well,
So
it's like, my memory of that is kind of backwards because I'm. It's like your film going backwards. I remember thinking, oh, you better fall down, and then it kind of backed up, and I felt the mine go off next to me, and I looked down at the toe of my boot, didn't blow my leg off, and there was a piece of commo wire across the toe of my boot, and I knew exactly what I'd done. And that was kind of the kind of day when everything went wrong. It was like I woke up, I couldn't find my helmet, I had to borrow the Exos helmet, and it had a big gold bar on it. And
no.
and it's the first time we ran into these 3 VC, they shot at us. And this is the first time we'd been fired on. And put the platoon online, and then I heard this whizzing in front of me, and there was a guy with a machine gun on the other platoon that was firing across the front of my platoon, so I stopped. The captain chewed me out. And another thing, it's like you go back on these things and say, oh, my God, because we were going through, before that happened, we were in a part of the, I guess you call it jungle in Vietnam, and here was this 1,000-pound bomb that hadn't gone off. And we're up there looking at it. Well, if they had it wired right, they would have blown up the whole platoon or the whole company at that time. And that was just a fortunate thing. And
So it landed on your position.
no, it didn't land. It was something that had gone off somewhere else, and the VC had hauled it off to work on it.
Got it.
And one of their favorite things was to bury one of those 1,000-pound bombs in the road. And, you get a convoy going over it and then set it off. One of the audiobooks I did called The Art of War by Sun Tzu was written.
I heard that. I listened to that. Yeah.
Did you? Well, that was that is the blueprint for what's happening now and what happened in Vietnam and what happened in all the wars after that. You get just drawing us into a quagmire that we can't get out of.
Yeah.
And boy, I tell you, it just it's we're such a disadvantage. It's kind of like the big guy, and this little guy picking on him, and he can't hurt him, but it's because he's bigger than he is. But boy, I tell you,
Yeah. It's kind of like you don't have to win a war; you just have to make the other guy lose it.
well, there's no more wars. I mean, it's not like, I almost got smacked up the side of the head by a lady Marine when I was at the VA the other day, and I said to her, I says, the last, and I can say this because I was in one of those wars, but I says, the last guy that died defending his country died in 1945, and since then we haven't had somebody saying, hey, we're gonna take over your country. You're gonna be speaking our language before you know it. And they got real smart. They don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. And and plus now you've got a situation where we have a professional army. They call it a volunteer army, but it's being in the military is these guys earn above the median wage. If you take the median wage of the military and compare it with the median wage of civilians, it's a good job. It's hard to find jobs now, and that is a job that pays well. And once these guys get into it, they can't really pull out. They got car payments, stuff like that. And they're making good money, and what they're doing in the military doesn't always transfer over to civilian life. Just
Right.
think about the guy that was a sniper and ends up changing tires at Walmart.
Yeah, it's not a good fit.
Well, it's like you think of what these guys have done. I'm kind of on the edge of things. You'll find guys that will not talk about their military experience, and it is. I didn't get there. I didn't go there. I didn't have that experience. But those that did find that they cannot relay to civilians what they did. I mean, they can tell them what they did, but they can't understand it. Mm-hmm. And it's I read a very, very good book. I forgot who wrote it, but it's called What It's Like to Go to War. And it's very well written. The guy that wrote it was a lieutenant in the Marines in Vietnam, and also a Rhodes Scholar, and it just and it took the Vietnam guys a long, long time to adjust to what they'd been through, because for the most part it didn't happen to me, but for the most part they came back to just a terrible, terrible situation. I can remember seeing an E4 in the San Francisco airport, and he had you could tell by he was wearing his Class A's, but you could tell they'd been hanging in a locker for a year because they're all covered with that red dust that was so prominent in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And he had the 1,000-yard stare. And here he is. He's in the airport in San Francisco. I mean, just dump him off, and there you go. And that guy, probably 24 hours earlier, had been in a situation where he could have died. And the Vietnam veteran, he was. You've got the wall now and so forth, and people come and say, thank you for your service. And I will tell them typically, I said, well, hey, you're welcome, but I was well paid. And you're a little late, but...
Wow.
Yeah, it was and it, of course, everything you do, it just, it gives you something to work on later on. And, like you take the World War II guys. I mean, 90% of them, they got out and they went to work, and, they never forgot about it. But they just did their job. I read a book by Charles Sweeney, and Charles Sweeney was 24 years old when he flew the B-29 that dropped an atomic bomb on Nagasaki. And you think, 24 years old, and he was flying a B-29. And how many guys are 24 years old and working at Burger King today? But, those guys in World War II, what they did, I mean, it's just... I had a neighbor, and he was a bombardier on a B-24 and was stationed in England. And he told me, this is just a casual thing with him. He says, there was... we had a mission, and the first 3 planes in front of us crashed on takeoff, and we were next, and they canceled it. But and it's like some, it's just you don't have, there's no rhyme or reason as to what happens. You could have been the best pilot in the world, could be flying your aircraft, and you get shot down. I had a friend that I'd have breakfast with. He was an amputee and also a POW, and most of these guys that were in the Air Force and so forth got into the fight in 1943 because it took that long to train them, even though they went in 1941 and joined the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And his first mission, he got shot down. Whereas my neighbor Bob, he went through 36 missions. And of course, both of them lived to talk about it, but it's really hard to imagine what they went through in World War I. As a matter of fact, one of the audiobooks I did was called Jump Commander. And it was a guy's grandson actually wrote it. He drew it out of his grandfather, because he knew that he was one of these guys that wouldn't talk about it. And finally he got the story, and it was just phenomenal. That's one of the great things about doing audiobooks is that you get to read some things that you would never think about reading. Right. But, here this guy was with the 101st Airborne and jumped into Normandy. Matter of fact, he jumped not only into Normandy, he jumped into Africa, Normandy, and, he was injured on one of the jumps, but you just the things those guys went through. It's unbelievable. But anyhow, we're kind of getting off voiceover here, and that.
Well, no, that's okay because I'm enjoying this conversation. And when you speak of soldiers getting shot down on their mission, in their flights in war, it reminds me of this story I read several years ago. This book about Lance Sijon. I know you've heard about him. Into the Mouth of the Cat. He was an Air Force pilot who got shot down in Vietnam, and the book was just it was an amazing story, and how he even though he ended up getting captured after he got shot down, and his leg was broken and he was horribly injured, but he never stopped trying to escape.
That is the thing. There are two things that I really, really feared when I was, because I'd started out, I was a transportation movement control specialist, running a kind of a Remington Raider. I was a clerk typist. And then I decided to go into the infantry. And, different things you worry about. Of course, you're 24 years old. You don't worry about much in 24. But one of them was being captured. I just really feared becoming captured because, it's like I had an NCO in my platoon when I was at Fort Riley who had been captured in Korea. And he told me, he says, you when those guys want to know something, you tell them. And it's, I can't explain it really, but it was something I really feared. And the other thing I feared was a mine.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the second one got me, but, another really interesting book I did was called Almost a Great Escape. There was a Steve McQueen movie called The Great Escape.
Yeah.
And this was a true story. A true story that when the writer's mother died, she left him a box of letters and pictures. And, he never really understood his mother. She was in a bad marriage and so forth. But what was in the box was more about her life when she was a young, vibrant woman. And when she was in her 18 or 19, she dated a Norwegian guy who was a fighter pilot, or was in fighter pilot training in Canada. And he was actually turned out to be, name was Jens, I forget his last name, but that escape that they were talking about in the movie, there were 73 guys, I think, that got out. And 3 made it to freedom, actually got out of Germany. 50 were killed on the road, and the rest were captured. And that was, she dated that guy. And, it's like one of those what if, because he was really Mr. Superhero, that he could do just about anything. And his father was a real jerk. But if she would have married Jens, he wouldn't have been around, type of thing. But it was fascinating book, true story.
Right. Now, Mike, you mentioned earlier that you were some type of engineer in Silicon Valley before you became an auctioneer.
I was a sales engineer, which meant I sold printed circuit boards, and this gets back to kind of like what we're at that time. Apple Computer was one of my customers, and they bought things, and there were people who worked for them making things, and so I worked in the Silicon Valley right when at a very good time when the personal computer was just coming out. I think there were probably about 25 or 30 manufacturers of personal computers that were going for it, But that's what I did was I sold circuit boards in the Silicon Valley, and I could kind of see the writing on the wall as things started going offshore. And it's like my job was going to go away. And I'd always wanted to be an auctioneer. And because I have my disability retirement from the Army, I was able to survive until I started doing well as an auctioneer. But I decided I was going to go to auction school. And that's what I did, But I think I was salesman, basically. I wasn't really an engineer. Just calling the...
So part of the motivation for getting you involved in your first voiceover work as an auctioneer was the economic considerations.
Well,
what was going on?
Well, yeah, that's what was going on. And another thing I did, my son was very involved in BMX, bicycle motocross. And I got, one day the announcer didn't show up, and they said, "Hey, you got a deep voice. Why don't you announce?" I don't know if I can do that or not. Well, hey, it didn't take me long to get that microphone in my hand, and I just, whoa, wish I get paid for doing this.
And eventually you did.
Well, yeah, eventually, it's, It was always kind of a dream, I always wanted, well, everybody wants to be on radio, and that, and this just is the venue that life has pretty much chosen for me, and I'm loving it. I mean, it just, because I'm an old guy. I wasn't talking to you. This is my real voice. I'm actually 73 years old. You realize that? Yes, fourscore less 7. So, but anyhow, as an old person, it's something I can do.
Okay, so you break into the auctioneering world. You become a solid earner in that realm, and then eventually you migrate over to audiobooks. But and of course, you've got your hundreds of titles that you've done since you started in audiobooks. But what I want to know is, can you tell us sort of how you got involved with publishing audiobooks by other voice actors? Because, audiobooks by Mike Vendetti has, I can't even count the number of titles you guys have.
I can tell you. 925. Yes, sir.
Oh, man, you're about to hit the $1,000 mark.
I want to hit it before Halloween. I think it will, because I've got about 35 that are waiting to be published, that I've uploaded to Audible. But how I got into, publishing for other people is that I let some, being on the different discussion boards and so forth, I got on there and said, "Hey, I'm a publisher." So what? But I did publish a few audiobooks for people I knew. And, the social media thing is so great. I get on Facebook, and, there's all these audiobook narrators and so forth that are on Facebook. And I kind of make what I have available, because it's it's a lot different. Well, like these these are primarily books that are in the public domain. Now, to go into a public domain, a title had to be published before 1923, or if the copyright was not renewed after a 28-year period, then it goes into public domain. But there are a lot of works in public domain, and some of them are really good, and they are proven works, like that. People know that they do sell, and so I make this available. I says, hey, pick a work in the public domain. If you record it, you own it. You own the copyright to it, and I will publish it for you if you can meet the same standards that are required on ACX.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have taken advantage of this. Glenn Haskell, for example. Glenn sends me a short story, maybe 2 short stories, almost every day. And, it's something that probably takes him maybe a half hour to do. And, it's like, you put a lot of these things out. A lot of them don't sell. But, take, for example, the Art of War. That one really sold. And that is a good thing. And it's kind of like there was a book out called The Long Tail. And if you picture a graph with your blockbusters on the left-hand side, it goes way up. And then it comes down until you've got just a kind of a really flat line. And that is the tail. And were it not for the internet, those titles would never make it to a bookshelf or to on a bookstore. But
Right.
because it doesn't cost anything to put things there, it works well. I mean, some of these don't make a lot. Some of them just sell one, and others sell, hundreds. I was really amazed when I got my first check from Audible. It was $750. I said, oh, my God, because I was expecting, $5 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah.
And then there are more and more people who want to get into voiceover. They're like David Stiefel, one of my narrators, is an actor. I mean, graduated from the Yale School of Drama and so forth, and he's done a lot of parts. And says, oh yeah, that's that guy back there, And he was in. I kind of tease him about it. I says, yeah, you were the dead guy in episode 6 of True Detective.
Yeah, he played that part pretty. That was a method role for him, I guess. I'm guessing, right?
Well, I don't know. It took him 2 weeks to do it, and he got scale and had to get a haircut. Because the wig they put on, his hair stuck out of it. But the only thing is, he laid there, and I don't know if you saw True Detective, but I mean that was really.
I did.
Oh,
that was very good.
Well, you remember when the guy bent over the dead guy and says, "Would you like a drink of water, sweetheart?"
Ooh, which episode was that?
Episode 6. That was the last one, episode 6. But the dead guy was David. David didn't say anything, but he was just laying there.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna have to go back and watch episode 6 now.
Yeah.
Just to check that out. Okay. So Mike, we've arrived at the point of the program where we want to play a little free association game with you.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Oh, they did this at the VA and they wouldn't let me out, but go ahead.
This is going to be fun.
Okay.
So I want to give you a word or a name, a series of words or names, and we want you to respond as quickly as you can with the first thing that comes to your mind.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Bill Gates.
Oh, Bill Gates, Microsoft. It's like I think of every time I switch on my Windows 8, which I hate, I think of Bill Gates.
Okay. John McCain.
John McCain. John McCain was, I think of him as a prisoner of war, as a lieutenant commander in the Navy, and eventually a captain. But, I think of John McCain as a very, very brave person.
Audible.com.
Audible.com, love them. They are the ones that publish my audiobooks.
General Petraeus.
General Petraeus, it's guys present a persona, as to what they are. But, to get to that level in the military, you have to have one huge ego. And, there was a saying in OCS, do something, even if it's wrong, candidate. And that's one trait of a general. And also the same thing with McCain, is they make quick decisions. They make a decision and they stick to it. And he may have made the wrong one, but he did it. I have a lot of respect for the guys that went to the military academy.
ISIS.
I'm not going to repeat this, okay? But it was something I posted on Facebook that had to do with sheep. But
okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
Broncos.
Oh, Denver Broncos. Yes. I'm out here in Colorado. We love the Broncos.
Royalty share.
Royalty share, you got to be careful with royalty share, because some of the things that royalty share, you will never or collect very, very few royalties. But it's like having an annuity. If you do enough of them, some of them are going to pay off.
Scott Brick.
Scott Brick. The first audiobook I ever listened to was our friend Scott Brick, and they were just coming out then. It was this book was The Omnivore's Dilemma. Scott is one of the big guys. That is, everybody would like to be like Scott Brick. Just show up, sit down in the booth, record, and get paid. And go. I had a friend. Okay, I'm getting kind of off the topic. Can I get it? Can I do this?
That's okay.
Okay. Sure. One of my mentors as an auctioneer was Ferris Rogers. First time I ever saw Ferris Rogers, he was selling Fred Astaire's shoes on television. But Ferris was a contract auctioneer, and this is pretty much what Scott Brick is. I mean, he's a contract, but he gets paid. It's like Ferris would show up at the auction, he'd take a leak, he'd tell you how great he was, he'd pick up his check, he'd call the auction, take a leak, and go home. And that is kind of the way that, you can be a person who can demand to be paid for what you do. And if you can't do that, then you're doing royalty share. But Scott Brick and a few narrators who are well known and do their job extremely well are going to be paid for doing it. They get it's not revenue share. You're getting paid per finish hour, which is great.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Okay, and finally, Audie Awards.
The Audies, I would love to have an Audi, but I just don't travel much anymore. I don't even know if I could go to New York if I won one.
All right. Perfect. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike, for spending your time with us on the weekend. We really appreciate it. And tell us now, if any of our listeners out there, a lot of our listeners are voice actors, and if any of them were interested in narrating a book in the public domain and having you distribute it, what sort of advice or guidance could you provide to them?
Keep your day job. Actually, it's what I do is royalty share, because Audible pays me once a quarter, and I pay my narrators as soon as I get paid, and I pay them about 80% of what Audible pays me. Well, I pay them 80% of what Audible pays me, which is a really good deal. The only thing is, if you're going to do something from the public domain, check and make sure that it's something that you feel will sell. There's nothing like doing a 16-hour audiobook that is never going to have a chance of selling. But I mean, and the other thing is, because since a book is in a public domain, there is no. I mean, I'll publish more than one. I've got several titles that are published, same title, but it's narrated by different people. Because it's not like a book where you do this book and it's you and the book are married forever. Public domain does not work that way. So, and then just get a hold of me, get on my Facebook account or whatever. And, it's like I don't want to be a launching ground for new narrators. I mean, I would love to, but can't really do that. I need things that are pretty much ready to go because I'm a one-man operation. And if they can produce an audiobook, or they have produced audiobooks on ACX, or they have done royal pay per finished hour for, say, like if Scott Brick were to get a hold of me, I would be happy to publish his audiobook. He wouldn't get paid right away, but it's pretty much. I'm like eBay. I'm your platform. If you list something on eBay, eBay is just a platform that puts it out there for other people to see. And since I have a contract with Audible.com, I can put it on Audible. Audible is the only game in town as far as audiobooks are concerned.
That is true.
And, that's one of the things about the Internet. When I was in San Jose, I was right up the street from eBay. And, they got there first, and it's Audible is being an Amazon company, is nobody is going to replace them in the near future that I can see. And they're going to continue to be the only game in town because they own the game.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned that people could contact you through your Facebook page. How do they find you, or do you also have a website, or how can they keep up with what's going on with Mike Vendetti?
MikeVendetti.com.
Okay, and can you spell that for us?
That's MikeVendetti.com.
Okay, and they can. And your email address is on that site somewhere.
Yes, I'm Mike at MikeVendetti.com, or I'm Mike at a1.com. So you'd probably be best at Mike at MikeVendetti.com.
A1.
Yeah,
right.
Hey, I've been in this game so long. I went out and bought some domains, and one of my favorite movies was Emperor of the North. Just can't remember who the actors were, but it was A1, and I really like that. So it's the letter ANUMBER, and then the numeral 1.com.
Okay.
Mike at A1.com. That's easy to remember.
That's very easy to remember. Yep. Top shelf.
Mm-hmm.
That's a top shelf email address right there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so, and, not to sound too trite here, Mike, but I do want to thank you for your service to the country.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. It was, it was, at that time, it was, that's what you did. I mean, it was, I remember John Wayne, it was, so thank you for thanking me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now, I was hoping, Mike, that I could talk you into playing us out with maybe a little auction here. Maybe pretend your mic is up for sale and I'm one of the buyers in the audience, and you just give us what you got. Maybe I'll throw some bids your way, and we'll just play out the show with that. How does that sound?
Well, there's we can do a Hawaiian auction. We can do several different kind of auctions. Art is
Now explain what a Hawaiian auction is.
A Hawaiian auction. That's where your filler word is hula bid. Hula bid, yes. I'm at 75 here now. Hula bid 80. $80 bid now. Hula bid 85. Would you bid 85? Would you give me 85 on them? I'm at 85. And hula bid 90. Hula bid 90. 90 there now. 95. Would you go 95?
92.
Don't give me 92. It's 92 and a half. Now a 93.75 to the other guy. Thank you. Now we are at 95. 95.
95.
No, you can't. It's not your turn. I got the other guy at 95.
Oh,
Now
I'm
100.
already in the lead.
No, you're behind. You're behind.
Oh, okay.
You need to be 100.
You can't see me raise my hand, so
I can't-
I'll just say 100.
Yeah, you're at 100 there now. 125, 125, 125 bid now 2 1/4, 2 1/4 now 2.5, 2.5 now 2.75. We don't even know where we're at now, do we?